Far across the galaxy, in a quiet region where stars barely flickered, a strange signal began to spread. It was faint at first, a whisper in the vast emptiness of space. The signal seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere all at once, as though it were caught in the winds of the cosmos. But for those who knew how to listen, it was a call, a distress signal from an unknown source. It was not the usual kind of message. Most distress calls were clear and direct, filled with information about the sender's location and their situation. This one, however, was different. It was fragmented, distorted, and at times, almost impossible to decode. But as the signal grew stronger, more advanced civilizations in the galaxy began to take notice. The first to receive the signal were the Eldrin, a race of beings known for their unmatched intellect. They lived in cities built on the edges of black holes, harnessing gravitational energy to power their far-reaching technology. To the Eldrin, the galaxy was a puzzle to be solved, a game of logic and reason. But even their great minds struggled with the transmission. "We have detected the signal," one of the Eldrin scientists said, his voice calm but filled with curiosity. "But it's unlike anything we've ever encountered before." His colleague, a younger Eldrin with a sharp mind for patterns, analyzed the data. "It's human," she said, her voice a mix of surprise and disbelief. "The signal source is a human ship. It's fragmented, but there are enough recognizable codes. We can't ignore this." The news spread quickly among the Eldrin leadership, who immediately began to deliberate. Why would a human ship be so far out in uncharted space? One leader asked. And why did it send out such a weak and broken signal? Others were skeptical. The humans, with their relatively young technology, were not known for venturing far beyond their home planet. It seemed unlikely that they would have traveled this far from Earth. "It's a trap," one elder suggested. "A lure to draw in the curious. It's not worth our time." Yet, despite the doubts, the Eldrin agreed that they could not ignore the signal entirely. They sent a small fleet to investigate, but not with any great urgency. To them, it was just another mystery in the vast universe, a puzzle they might solve if they felt like it. Meanwhile, the signal reached the Zorax Empire, a fierce and highly militarized species known for their strength and determination. The Zorax had long believed that might made right, and they saw no reason to involve themselves in the problems of lesser species. When the message reached them, they did not rush to investigate. Instead, they saw it as a human problem. "Let the humans handle their own issues," said Commander Varric, leader of the Zorax military. "They've always managed to get by on their own. We should focus on more pressing matters, like expanding our empire." His words were met with agreement, and the Zorax ignored the signal, moving on to their next conquest. To them, it was not worth the risk to send a fleet across the stars to help a species they considered weak. Finally, the signal reached the Votori, a race of diplomats known for their cold logic and measured decisions. They had no interest in war or conflict, but prided themselves on understanding the patterns of the galaxy. The Votori examined the message carefully, analyzing the fragmented code. They, too, could tell it was human, but the message was unclear. There was no strategic value in it. No trade route was threatened. No alliances were at stake. "I'm not sure why this should concern us," said Ambassador Iliros, a Votori diplomat. "Perhaps it's best to wait for more information before making any decisions." The Votori, like the others, chose inaction, opting to observe the situation from afar. The galaxy's most powerful empires, each with advanced technology, fleets of warships, and infinite resources, decided to sit back and wait. They felt no urgency to intervene. But on Earth, far from the cold logic of the Eldrin, the might of the Zorax, and the detached diplomacy of the Votori, things were different. When the message was decoded on Earth, it struck a chord in the hearts of every human who heard it. There was no hesitation, no questioning whether they should get involved. It was clear that someone, somewhere, was in need, and that was enough for humanity to act. A team of engineers, astronauts, and leaders gathered in a war room. They had limited resources compared to the great powers of the galaxy, but they had something else, something the other civilizations didn't have, an unyielding determination to help, no matter the cost. "We're going," said General Sarah Carter, her voice firm. "We won't leave them stranded. Not on our watch." And so, humanity began to prepare its response. With every ounce of their collective effort, they began to build a rescue fleet. It would be a long journey, and they had little more than their willpower and resourcefulness to rely on, but they were determined to show the galaxy what it meant to be human. While the rest of the galaxy debated and dismissed the signal, humanity made its choice. The journey to rescue the stranded humans had already begun, and the galaxy would soon learn just how far humans would go to help one of their own. The galaxies stretched far and wide, filled with empires and species that had existed for centuries. They were beings of unimaginable power, with fleets that could obliterate entire planets, weapons that could bend space and time, and minds that could calculate the future. But when the signal reached them, they hesitated. The Eldrin were the first to discuss the situation. Their city-states, perched on the edges of black holes, were centers of knowledge and logic. The Eldrin saw themselves as the galaxy's intellectual leaders, gifted with wisdom and the ability to solve even the most complex problems. They believed that no issue, no matter how distant, could be beyond their understanding. In the grand hall of the Eldrin High Council, the leaders sat in a circle, the flickering light from the nearby black hole casting strange shadows on their faces. A single figure stepped forward to speak. "We have analyzed the signal," said Quara, one of the Eldrin's most renowned scientists. "It is human. The transmission is broken, but the coding is unmistakable. However, I do not see why we should act on it. The humans are a primitive species, and their message is too vague. The galaxy has no obligation to respond to a simple cry for help." A murmur rippled through the council. Some members agreed with Quara. To them, the situation was a non-issue. The humans had made their choices by venturing into unknown space. They did not deserve help. Others, though, were curious. "But what if they are in real danger?" asked a younger member of the council, who had always been more empathetic to other species. Quara shook her head. "They are humans. They are capable of surviving in the most hostile environments. Let them find their own way, as they always have. We should focus on more important matters. There are far more pressing issues than helping a species that has not earned our aid." And so, the Eldrin made their decision. They would not send aid. They would observe from afar, but their involvement would be minimal at best. The galaxy's greatest minds, armed with knowledge and wisdom, chose to turn a blind eye to a plea for help. Meanwhile, on the other side of the galaxy, the Zorax Empire took a similar stance. The Zorax were a militaristic species, known for their strength and dominance. They had built an empire that stretched across vast star systems, conquering planets and eliminating anyone who dared stand in their way. They believed that power was the only true measure of worth. When the signal arrived in the Zorax command center, it was met with laughter. "What is this?" Commander Varrock, a towering figure covered in dark armor, scoffed. "A human signal. Let them deal with their problems themselves. Humans are weak. They are no match for the forces of the galaxy." His advisors nodded in agreement. "We have no reason to get involved. The humans are always finding themselves in these situations. Let them solve their own problems." The Zorax, having conquered countless civilizations, had no interest in helping those they considered beneath them. Their empire was vast, and their resources endless. To them, it was not worth wasting time on a human problem. And then, the Votori, the galaxy's diplomats, took their turn. The Votori were a species of pure logic. They had no interest in violence or conflict, preferring instead to broker peace and maintain balance. To them, everything was about calculation, efficiency, and reason. They analyzed the signal with their usual calm demeanor, carefully weighing every possible outcome. There is no benefit in responding to this signal, Ambassador Ileros said, his voice smooth and measured. It is not a threat to us. There is no strategic advantage. Why should we involve ourselves in a situation that holds no value for our species? Some of the Votori leaders expressed mild concern, but it was fleeting. The logic of the situation was clear. The humans had put themselves in danger, and it was not the galaxy's responsibility to bail them out. Why bother? The Votori saw no gain in intervening. As the three greatest powers of the galaxy, Eldrin, Zorax, and Votori, deliberated and dismissed the signal, a pattern emerged. The message, originally sent in desperation, now seemed to be fading into the background. Each civilization, confident in its own superiority, ignored the human plight. The humans, however, were not so easily ignored. Back on Earth, the situation was different. There, a small group of leaders and engineers had already come together to act. They understood that the other races might not care, but that would not stop them from helping. As the galaxy's most powerful empires continued their endless debates, humanity was quietly preparing. The human fleet was growing, and every day brought them closer to the stranded colony. No hesitation, no doubts, just the unwavering belief that if one human was in need, it was the duty of all humans to respond. The galaxy may have turned its back, but humanity had never been so sure of its path. The decision had been made. They would go, no matter the cost, and show the galaxy that when humans made a choice, nothing could stand in their way. While the galaxy's greatest empires remained passive, Earth was alive with action. The moment the SOS signal was decoded, humanity's response was swift and resolute. The world watched as the leaders of every nation, the brightest minds in science, and ordinary citizens alike came together, united by a singular purpose: to rescue those stranded in the far reaches of space. The United Nations convened an emergency meeting in the heart of New York City. Representatives from every country gathered, their faces filled with determination. They knew that the other galactic powers would not help. The decision was clear. If anyone was to act, it would be humanity itself. They had always survived through challenges, big and small, and this would be no different. It doesn't matter how far they are. General Sarah Carter spoke with authority, addressing the room. If there is one human out there, stranded and in need, we cannot leave them behind. Her words struck a chord with everyone in the room. It wasn't about politics. It wasn't about power or resources. It was about humanity's belief that no one should ever be abandoned. The decision was made. Humanity would lead the rescue mission. It wasn't going to be easy. The technology required for such a journey was far from perfect. Human ships were not equipped to travel the vast distances of uncharted space. They had never needed to. But in this moment of crisis, Earth's finest engineers, scientists, and innovators came together, combining their skills to make the impossible possible. The first step was building the fleet. A series of ships were constructed using the latest technology, but also relying on older, tested designs to save time. The rescue ships were not massive like the fleets of the Eldrin or the Zorax, but they were efficient, capable, and most importantly, driven by human resolve. One of the most critical components was the propulsion system. The ships would need to travel far beyond the reach of any known space lanes. Earth's engineers worked around the clock, developing new, hybrid engines that could provide both speed and fuel efficiency for the long journey. The technology was not as advanced as what the other civilizations possessed, but it was a testament to human ingenuity. At the same time, the military began to prepare for the journey. General Sarah Carter, along with a team of pilots, engineers, and support staff, was tasked with commanding the rescue mission. The fleet would not be a military force. It was a rescue operation. Yet, the humans knew that the galaxy was a dangerous place, and they could not afford to be unprepared. "We'll be ready for anything," General Carter reassured her team. "No matter the challenges we face, we will get there." As the fleet prepared, Earth's media spread the message of the mission far and wide. The story of the human rescue fleet resonated with people across the world. They saw it not just as a mission of survival, but as a symbol of humanity's strength, compassion, and unyielding will. People volunteered in every way they could, from donating resources to offering their skills. The mission began to take shape. As each ship was completed, it was filled with the best and brightest from every corner of Earth: astronauts, engineers, doctors, and more. The fleet was a true reflection of humanity's diversity, with individuals from every nation coming together for a common goal. They were not just rescuing others. They were showing the galaxy that humanity's heart was as vast as the stars themselves. On launch day, the atmosphere was electric. The entire world seemed to hold its breath as the first of the rescue ships blasted off from Earth's surface. One by one, the ships in the fleet followed, cutting through the atmosphere with precision and determination. It was a sight to behold. Humans, with their limited resources and technology, reaching beyond the boundaries of their world to save others. The journey ahead would be long and fraught with danger. The path to the stranded colony was filled with unknowns, and many of the dangers were unlike anything the human fleet had ever encountered. There were cosmic storms, radiation fields, and rogue asteroids, all of which could easily destroy the fragile human ships. But the humans were not daunted. They had faced challenges before, and each time they had overcome them. This time would be no different. The fleet pressed forward, inching closer to their destination with each passing day. The crew worked tirelessly, managing repairs, keeping morale high, and ensuring that their mission remained on course. And as they traveled through the unknown, the galaxy began to notice. While the Eldrin debated, the Zorax ignored, and the Votori calculated, humanity was moving. The message was clear: if the galaxy would not act, humanity would. The journey was not just about saving a group of stranded humans. It was a statement, a bold declaration that no matter the distance, no matter the odds, humanity would always rise to the occasion. They would never abandon their own, and they would never stop fighting for what was right. The galaxy may have turned its back on this call for help, but humanity's response would prove that when it came to resolve, compassion, and determination, humans stood alone at the top. The human fleet had left Earth's orbit, embarking on a journey no one had ever imagined. They were heading into the deep unknown, towards a distant planet, carrying with them the hopes of a species that refused to be beaten by the impossible. The ships, small and untested compared to the colossal warships of the galaxy's empires, moved through space with quiet determination. Humanity had only one goal in mind: to rescue those stranded on an unknown world. The journey was long, and the challenges that lay ahead were daunting. Space, vast and empty, was not kind to those unprepared. The human ships, though well-equipped with the best of Earth's technology, were far from perfect. There were no grand fleets, no impenetrable defenses, but what humanity lacked in resources, it made up for in resolve. Every member of the crew understood the importance of their mission. The crew worked in shifts, operating the ships with precision and care. Captain Emily Grant, who led the largest of the rescue ships, knew that they couldn't afford any mistakes. Every decision was critical. "We're all in this together," she often reminded her crew. "We can't turn back now." The first major challenge came when the fleet encountered a cosmic storm, an intense electrical disturbance that stretched across the stars, disrupting communication systems and damaging the ship's shields. The storm was a force of nature that even the most advanced civilizations avoided, but the humans pressed on. The fleet's engineers quickly adjusted the shields to a higher setting, even though it meant pushing the limits of their technology. They had no choice. "Adjusting the shields now," said one of the engineers, his voice tense as sparks flew from the control panel. "This will be close." The storm raged outside, but inside the ship, the crew was calm, focused, and united. They had no choice but to trust in their technology and each other. Slowly but surely, they managed to navigate the storm, emerging on the other side with only minor damage. The human fleet had survived its first major test. However, the dangers didn't stop there. As the fleet continued its journey, they encountered asteroid fields, where enormous chunks of rock hurtled through space at incredible speeds. The asteroids were large enough to destroy entire ships, but the humans had prepared for this as well. They used every ounce of their resourcefulness, weaving between the rocks, dodging obstacles, and relying on their agility. It was a delicate dance, but the fleet emerged from the asteroid field unscathed, proving that human adaptability could overcome even the harshest environments. "We're making progress," said Lieutenant Alex Rivera, the pilot of another ship, "but we still have a long way to go." As the days turned into weeks, the crew members grew tired. The isolation of space, the uncertainty of the journey, and the constant pressure of the mission took their toll. Yet, not a single crew member faltered. They shared stories of Earth, of their families, of why they had chosen to be part of this mission. It was their way of staying connected, of remembering why they were willing to risk everything. Despite the exhaustion, the crew remained steadfast. They worked together to keep the ships in top condition, constantly repairing minor damages, recharging systems, and recalibrating equipment. But their biggest challenge came when the fleet encountered a radiation field, an invisible wall of harmful particles that could destroy unshielded technology in seconds. It was an obstacle no one had anticipated, and it threatened to derail the entire mission. For a brief moment, fear set in. Some of the crew members questioned whether they could make it through. The radiation was strong enough to knock out their shields, and if the radiation made contact with the ship's engines, the fleet would be lost. But Captain Grant wouldn't allow that to happen. "We can't turn back now," she said, her voice calm but firm. "We've come this far. We've faced worse." The engineers scrambled to make adjustments, reprogramming the ship's energy systems to create a makeshift barrier against the radiation. The pressure was on, but humanity's ingenuity shone through once again. Using quick thinking and teamwork, they'd managed to reduce the radiation's impact, allowing the fleet to safely navigate through the field. When they finally emerged, the entire fleet let out a collective sigh of relief. The crew members shared a brief moment of celebration, but there was no time for rest. They knew their journey was far from over. The planet they were headed to still lay far in the distance, and the dangers of space were never far behind. Despite all the obstacles, the human fleet pressed on. The galaxy's other civilizations may have dismissed them, but humanity had proven something that no one could deny. They were capable of overcoming any challenge, no matter how big or small. With every passing moment, humanity's resolve was tested, and with every test, they grew stronger. As the fleet neared their destination, a sense of unity and determination spread throughout the ships. They were not just traveling through space. They were proving to the galaxy that when it came to saving one of their own, there was nothing humanity couldn't achieve. The stars above may have been filled with uncertainty, but the hearts of the human crew were full of hope. The human fleet had finally arrived at their destination, a planet nestled in the far reaches of space, far from any known trade routes or civilized systems. The colony, made up of human settlers, had been isolated for years. Now, the moment of truth had arrived. Humanity had traveled through the dangers of space, faced countless obstacles, and come through each one stronger than before. But as they approached the planet, the reality of their mission weighed heavily on them. The planet below was a cold, desolate place. The colony's buildings, once shining symbols of human achievement, were now in ruins. The long years of isolation had taken their toll. Communications with the settlers had been lost, and only the faintest distress signal had reached the galaxy. Despite all their technological advancements, no one had come to help. As the human fleet descended into the planet's atmosphere, Captain Emily Grant and her crew could see the extent of the damage. Large sections of the colony were abandoned, with broken structures and overgrown vegetation taking over the land. The survivors, those who had managed to endure, were few and far between. "We need to move quickly," Captain Grant said, her voice tight with concern. "We don't know what we're walking into down there, but we can't waste any time." The landing was smooth, but the sense of urgency was palpable. The crew quickly gathered in the command center, preparing to assess the situation. The team had come prepared for everything: supplies, medical equipment, and engineers to repair anything that could be fixed. But what they could not prepare for was the uncertainty of what awaited them. As they stepped out of the ships and onto the surface of the planet, the air felt cold and thin. The sky was overcast, with dark clouds hanging low, and the wind howled through the broken streets of the colony. The survivors, when they saw the fleet descending from the sky, could hardly believe their eyes. A few of them had been watching the skies for years, hoping for a sign of rescue. Now, their prayers had been answered. The first person to approach the landing site was a man in his late 40s, wearing tattered clothing and a makeshift mask over his face. He walked slowly, his steps unsure, as if he could not quite believe that help had arrived. His eyes were filled with both relief and suspicion. After all, they had waited so long, and no one had ever come. "You're really here?" he asked, his voice cracked from years of isolation. Captain Grant stepped forward, offering a reassuring smile. "Yes, we're here. We're here to help." With those words, a wave of emotion seemed to ripple through the group of survivors. Some started to cry, while others just stared, as if they were afraid that the moment would slip away. For years, they had fought to survive, holding on to the smallest hope that someone, someday, would find them. Now that hope was becoming a reality. The survivors led the human team into the heart of the colony, showing them what little remained. The damage was far worse than anyone had anticipated. Buildings were crumbling, crops had failed, and the colony's power supply had long since shut down. The settlers had managed to survive on dwindling supplies, but they were exhausted and desperate. Dr. Clara Mitchell, the medical officer on board the rescue ship, quickly set to work. She administered medical supplies and began treating the injured. There were broken bones, untreated infections, and signs of malnutrition. The survivors had endured, but they had not done so without paying a heavy price. "This isn't going to be easy," Dr. Mitchell said as she worked. "But we're going to make it through this. We'll get you back on your feet." The survivors were grateful, but it was clear that they had been living on the edge for far too long. Many of them had lost hope, and some even spoke of leaving the planet to find another way to survive. But Captain Grant, along with the rest of the human team, refused to let them give up. "We're not leaving," Captain Grant said firmly. "This is our planet now. We will rebuild together." And rebuild they would. The human team immediately began to work, using the tools and resources they had brought with them. Engineers worked tirelessly to restore the colony's power grid, while others set up shelters and began to clear the overgrown streets. Everyone pitched in, and the sense of unity that had carried the human fleet through space now drove them to restore the colony to life. As the days passed, the survivors slowly regained their strength. The humans brought food, water, and medical aid, and perhaps most importantly, hope. The settlers who had once thought they would die alone now saw a future filled with possibility. They no longer had to face the harshness of their new world on their own. Despite the hardships, the colony began to show signs of recovery. With the human fleet's help, the survivors started to rebuild their homes, their lives, and their sense of community. And though there was much work left to do, they knew they were no longer abandoned. From the depths of space, the galaxy had learned something important. Humanity's resolve was unmatched. While the galaxy's great powers had turned their backs, the humans had answered the call, proving that no one would be left behind. Not if humanity had anything to say about it. As the days turned into weeks, the human team worked relentlessly to restore the colony. The survivors, once weary and broken, now stood side by side with the humans, rebuilding their world from the ground up. They restored power to the colony, repaired the water filtration systems, and planted new crops that would grow in the planet's challenging environment. It was a slow but steady process, and with each passing day, the colony became a little more like it had once been, a thriving, hopeful place. Captain Emily Grant had always known that the road ahead would be tough, but she never imagined that it would be so fulfilling. The feeling of working alongside the settlers, of helping them build a future, was something she hadn't anticipated. It was more than a rescue mission. It was a partnership, a chance to show the galaxy what humanity was truly capable of. But just as the colony began to take shape, something unexpected happened. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the fleet's sensors detected a ship approaching the planet. The humans on the ground froze. It wasn't one of their own ships. The distress signal had already been sent out to every known civilization, and they had heard nothing back, not even a response. The galaxy had turned its back on them. Now, a ship was approaching. "We're not alone," Lieutenant Alex Rivera said, his voice filled with both concern and curiosity. Captain Grant was on her feet immediately, rallying the team. "Get to the communication room. Let's see who's out there." The communication systems crackled as the human team tried to establish contact with the incoming ship. The crew worked quickly, trying to get a clear signal. The minutes stretched on, each second filled with tension. Finally, the screen flickered, and an image of a ship appeared on the display. It was unlike any ship the humans had seen before. Sleek, dark, and clearly from a highly advanced civilization. "Who are they?" asked Dr. Clara Mitchell, her eyes narrowing as she studied the unknown vessel. The image cleared, and a figure appeared on the screen. A tall, alien being with pale skin, dark eyes, and a stern expression. The being was dressed in a form-fitting uniform, with symbols that none of the humans recognized. "This is Captain Jara of the Xendari fleet," the alien spoke in a calm but commanding voice. "We have come to offer our assistance." Captain Grant's mind raced. The Xendari were a well-known species, an empire that had once been allies of the Eldrin, but had since distanced themselves from galactic politics. No one had expected them to show up. Certainly not now, not after all these years of silence. "You've come to help?" Captain Grant asked, her voice steady but full of suspicion. "Why now?" The Xendari captain's expression softened slightly. "We were unaware of the distress signal until recently. When we received word of the stranded colony, we made haste to come to your aid." There was a brief silence. Captain Grant studied the alien carefully. It was difficult to trust someone who had waited so long to offer help, especially when humanity had already proven it could take care of itself. The Xendari had ignored the colony for years. What had changed? "We've managed," Captain Grant said, choosing her words carefully. "The colony is recovering, but thank you for the offer." "We did not come to simply observe," Captain Jara replied. "We came to offer resources, advanced technology, medical supplies, and ships to help rebuild your colonies. The galaxy owes you a debt for your persistence. We wish to assist you in any way we can." The words hung in the air. The offer sounded genuine, but Captain Grant could not shake the feeling that there was more to this than met the eye. The galaxy had watched and waited, and now that humanity had succeeded on its own, suddenly they wanted to help. She wasn't sure if they were being sincere or if there were other motives at play. "We appreciate the offer," Captain Grant said, her voice calm but firm. "But we've already made significant progress. We don't need help from anyone who stood by while we struggled." Captain Jara's face remained neutral, though a flicker of something passed across their features. "Understood," the alien said. "We offer our assistance regardless. The choice is yours." After a moment's pause, Captain Grant made a decision. "We will accept some resources, but only what's necessary. We've proven that we can stand on our own, and that's what matters. We won't be beholden to anyone." The Xendari captain nodded. "Agreed. We will provide what you require. But know this, the galaxy is watching you now. Your success has not gone unnoticed. You have shown a strength that others have not." With that, The transmission ended. The humans stood in silence, absorbing the unexpected turn of events. The Xendari had arrived, but their true intentions remained unclear. Would they truly honor their word, or were they simply seeking to manipulate a species that had proven itself to be more capable than they had imagined? For now, the humans focused on their work. The colony was thriving, and they had already overcome the hardest challenges, but they remained vigilant. The galaxy had seen what humanity was capable of, and no one knew what the future would hold. What mattered now was the unity they had built, and the promise they had made to one another, to never give up, no matter the cost. The days that followed the arrival of the Xendari were filled with mixed emotions. On one hand, the colony had received much-needed supplies and resources, which helped accelerate their recovery. Medical equipment, advanced technologies, and new farming techniques began to transform the struggling settlement into a place of hope. The survivors, once weakened by hunger and hardship, now had a renewed sense of purpose. Together with the human fleet, they worked side by side, reconstructing their world, brick by brick. But there was still a lingering doubt, a sense of unease. The galaxy had ignored them for so long, and now, when humanity had proven it could handle its own fate, the Xendari appeared out of nowhere, offering their help. While the settlers were grateful for the resources, they were also cautious. The trust they had built over the last few weeks with the human crew was something they couldn't easily give to the Xendari. Captain Emily Grant stood at the edge of the colony, looking out over the land they had worked so hard to restore. The once barren fields were now beginning to show signs of life. New crops had sprouted, and the colony's infrastructure was being rebuilt. It was a testament to human resilience. Nothing could stop them once they set their minds to a goal, but there was still much to consider. The Xendari had helped, but would they stay true to their word? Would their aid come with strings attached? Captain Grant couldn't help but feel wary. She had seen too much in her years of service to trust easily, especially when it came to powerful and distant civilizations. "You're thinking too much again, Emily," Lieutenant Alex Rivera said, walking up beside her. "We've made it this far. Let's focus on what we've accomplished." Captain Grant sighed, giving her friend a wry smile. "I know, but I can't shake the feeling that something's off. The galaxy ignored us for years, and now suddenly they want to help. It doesn't sit right with me." "I get it," Alex said, looking out at the horizon. "But look at what we've done. The colony's getting back on its feet. The settlers are starting to thrive again. We've already proven we don't need anyone to fight our battles. If they want to help, let them, but we're not dependent on them." Grant nodded, appreciating his perspective. They had done the impossible. The human spirit had shown its strength, and now the galaxy was watching them more closely than ever before. They were no longer the underdogs. Humanity had proven that they could overcome any challenge and build a future for themselves, no matter how far from home they were. The next day, Captain Grant made a decision. She called a meeting with the colony's leaders and the human crew. They would accept the Xendari's resources. After all, some help was better than none, but they would maintain their independence. The settlers had already shown they could rebuild, and the human fleet had demonstrated that it could stand strong on its own. It was time to look ahead, to build something lasting. "We've shown the galaxy what we can do," Captain Grant said to the gathered group. "We've rebuilt a shattered colony. We've overcome every obstacle that was thrown at us, and we've done it without relying on anyone. Let's continue that path. We'll accept the help we need, but we'll always stand on our own 2 feet." The room was filled with nods of agreement. The settlers had come a long way from the despair they had once felt. They had found strength in themselves, and in the humans who had rescued them. It was that unity, that shared determination, that would carry them into the future. In the days that followed, the Xendari delivered their resources as promised. But humanity, true to its word, used those gifts wisely, incorporating them into the colony's rebuilding efforts without becoming dependent on them. Slowly but surely, the colony returned to life. And as it did, something remarkable happened. Word of the human rescue mission spread across the galaxy. The tale of how humanity had gone into the unknown, overcome incredible odds, and rebuilt a broken colony was shared among other civilizations, stirring something deep within the hearts of many. The galaxy began to see humanity in a new light. The humans were no longer just a young and untested species. They had proven that they had the resolve, the creativity, and the drive to succeed, no matter the challenges they faced. And while many species had once looked down upon them, now there was a growing respect for humanity's indomitable spirit. Captain Grant looked out over the colony once again, watching the settlers work together with the human crew. She felt a sense of pride. They had built something real here. They had forged a new beginning, not just for the colony, but for humanity itself. The future was bright, and the galaxy, once full of doubt, was now watching with curiosity, and perhaps just a little respect. "We did it," Captain Grant whispered to herself, smiling. "We really did it." And with that, humanity's journey continued, not just as survivors, but as a people who had proven to the galaxy that, no matter what, they would never give up. They would always rise, always rebuild, and always move forward, no matter the cost.